Welcome to our podcast. Our what? Our podcast, the Mesa Public Schools Special Education Editorial podcast. This will be like reading a newspaper, but you're not reading a newspaper because you're just listening. Listening to drop some jokes and drop some knowledge. This will be entertainment for your ears. Now, how was that for an intro? Nailed it. Good morning and welcome to this Editorial podcast with your hosts, Justin, Ashley, and
Dania Forte.
I feel like it's been years.
It's been a long time, yeah.
I feel like we haven't recorded since 1985.
Well, I wasn't born yet, so.
Oh, I was. It was a good year.
How does it feel to be old? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, well, drop that. That's okay, right?
Okay, what's
okay, just drop something. Sorry about that. I hope everyone had a great holiday break. I definitely could have used one more week, even after my trip, because truth be told, I got bronchitis when I came back.
Where did you go again?
Aruba. Twas nice.
It was nice.
I was nice and tan.
As I was dog sitting for you?
As she was dog sitting my baby girl, Lucifer.
Which was...
Just kidding, her name's not Lucifer, it's Lucy.
Lucy, she's the sweetest. I also have to say my husband is not a dog person. It's like his one flaw because I think he's incredible. But I'm a big dog person. And he's obsessed with Lucy.
And she sent me a video of him trying to take her for a walk. So he was like walking in this video. He goes, "You wanna go for a walk?" And like
then she
like
lost it.
Lost her mind.
And he'll still talk about her like, okay, this is off topic always. But one of my friends was dog sitting and she was like, I can't come over because the dog got into chocolate and so I have to watch her. And Ken goes, Lucy would never.
She would never.
It's like, you don't know that.
Although I have been reading Spare, the Harry.
Oh, yeah, I want to read that.
Prince Harry's book.
Yes.
And I have it was my airplane ticket as my bookmark, and she chewed and nibbled the little side of which was fine. It was just an old airplane ticket, but I'd looked at her, I'm like, what's this? And she like cowered. I'm like, did you mess with this book?
This is Prince Harry's book.
This is Prince Harry's book. It's really good.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, it's really
good.
But
anyway, hope everyone had a great break. It was too short for me too, even though I didn't leave the state or vacation, but it was so nice to turn off my brain for that amount of time.
Yeah, and most of you turned off your brain as well because I didn't get many emails. Just a few here and there, but it's fine. I'll let it slide.
Good.
Let's get into it. I just have a few reminders first, and then I'm going to get into some shout-outs.
Okay.
Closeout dates. We talked about this last month. That is May 12th. Meaning most of our documentation should be finalized by May 12th. That goes for METs and IEPs. We both do realize that it's a soft deadline. So if you have a student that's enrolling or a transfer student or a preschool to kinder type of transition type kiddo.
Or an initial that came out of nowhere.
Yeah. We understand that all you have to do is one thing, and that's just communicate with Dania, myself, or if it's secondary, Nathan. Just so that we don't bombard you with emails saying, hey, why isn't this finalized yet?
Yeah.
That's it, simple, just communication. And then next is the electronic signatures that we turned on this month. I
didn't realize it'd be this controversial
yes.
when you guys did it.
Also, I thought everyone would read the news feed, but I guess they just see it's open and they're like, oh, fun, and then they just don't read the news feed, which is the whole point, is to read on how to utilize the electronic
I think
signatures.
that something new can be confusing.
I mean, sure, but then why wouldn't we just call and ask?
Excellent question.
Let's marinate in that for a second.
Let's marinate
in
it.
Like chicken. So electronic signatures. They are for remote meetings only. Remote means all of the participants are on Zoom,
everyone.
Google Meets, WebEx.
Yeah.
If you're meeting in person, you do not use this function. Because if you're in person, you should have a pen in hand and signing.
This is how Justin signs things.
Just like that. Now, I did give purview for our related service providers. Reminder, related service providers are SLPs, OTs, PTs, could be a school nurse.
Could be adapted PE.
Adapted PE. If they are attending the meeting remotely, and they're able to sign the day of, you can make sure you send them that electronic signature request. It also says in the directions that because you can only use it that day, you have to turn that function off. Because if you do not turn the function off, participants can sign whenever, then which that calls into question the compliance to the service dates, excuse me. So if it's an IEP and you have an IEP today, it's January 24th, you use that function today. But then, I don't know, the SLP signs on the 26th. But the services start the 25th. We're already a day out of compliance.
Right.
So you need to be cautious of doing that. If you cannot handle doing that, do not use the electronic signature function at all. This has been the bane of my existence for the past week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
A lot of questions have come in. I appreciate the questions, but you're asking the questions after the fact.
Yep. So ask the questions beforehand.
Yes.
It date stamps your signature, which is why it has to be the day of. Also, some questions that have been coming in through the psych chat is if everyone's in person and the parent participates of their own, request online, do they do it? Just, you don't have to do that.
Correct.
You can write participated via WebEx or participated via phone. If everyone's in person, there's no reason to use the electronic signature. Have everyone sign just then. Yeah, it's really meant for entirely remote meetings.
Correct. So, if you're listening to this message,
And you don't want to give Justin Ashley a corner.
which might happen, push this information out for me. We're going to put out another news feed as a reminder because Heidi and Ashley have been slammed with these questions.
Yeah.
And their eyes are going to roll out of their head. If we can't get this under control, I'm just going to turn the function off. I thought it would be a benefit to everybody in the district, but it turns out it's more of a
Well, we've been getting a lot
hindrance.
of requests ever since, we're still in COVID, but ever since we kind of returned, if we could go
Sure.
back to electronic signatures. So I think the intention was to make it easier, but then it hasn't.
Yeah, it
so
hasn't.
yeah.
So we'll just go with that. So feel free to push this message out. There's going to be more news feeds coming, and it will be in the newsletter as well. Switching gears, because you saw a little mean side of Justy, we're going to get into compliance.
Just a little escalated. Just like a
bit.
titch.
We're going to get into some compliance shout-outs. So for the month of December, we had quite a few schools that were in compliance.
It's exciting.
Really exciting. So I want to give a shout out to the psychs, the related service providers, the case managers, and all the teachers that made this happen for these schools. We had Bush, Carson, Chrisman, Edison, Eisenhower, Falcon Hill, Field, all of the Franklins. So good job, Laura Kasimova and team.
Kasimova. Sorry.
Yes, sorry, I always butcher your last name, forgive me. We have Guerrero, Holmes, Hughes, Irving, Ishikawa, Jefferson, Johnson, Keller, Lascendis, Lincoln, Lindbergh, MacArthur, Mesa Academy, Jordan, Mountain View again. So good job, Courtney Porter and team.
And Fragapane, Emily
And
Fragapane.
Fragapane, yeah. Red Mountain Ranch, Redbird, Rhodes, Robson, Roosevelt, Sarine, Sousa, Stapley, Stevenson, Summit, Taylor, Washington, Westwood.
Whoa,
Westwood, yep.
Yay, that's Steve Feltz, Nate Cover, and Monica Goody.
Goody.
Gowdy.
Again,
Sorry,
we butchered your
Monica.
name, sorry.
Let's see. But Rhodes was on there again, and
Carson.
Stapley, that's
Carson.
Steve Reef. And
And Jill-
Carson,
and
Jill
Jill Quay.
Coe.
So,
You guys.
Yeah, good job. I
Killing
think
it.
this was the most of secondary schools. For
That's
compliance.
incredible.
Yeah. Whitman, Wilson, and Zahara. So kudos to everyone for the month of December. Now, kudos further is we have 9 schools that were in compliance for the entire semester. That means September, October, November, and December.
What?
Yes. So we have 9. So we have Chrisman. So
Megan
that's
Creech.
Megan Creech and Jill Roberts, and I think Deneen Ferguson and Monica Massey.
I'm super impressed by your ability to remember everyone on that team. I barely know all the psychs. So
I got them down to it too. So them, Eisenhower, which is Casey
Casey
Blount,
Blount.
and Jennifer Aguma, I believe, and Brian Sally, I think, took over for when she was on maternity leave for the department chair.
Okay.
Jordan, so Laura Comley, Krista Rowley, Adam Esslinger, good job. Red Mountain Ranch, Larry Swain,
Swain,
and
that's
Kimberly
incredible.
Gibson, awesome. Redbird, Kelly Donaldson, and Tiffany Klug. Robson, Melissa
Melissa
Budak,
Budak.
and
Ooh,
Daniel
love
Ramos.
Melissa.
Salk, Jimbo
Stevens.
Stevens. He's
He
going to
hates
kill
Jimbo.
me.
Don't call him that. Jim
Actually, if everyone
Stevens.
can just email him Jimbo, he would love that the most.
Can I just say something about him that's
Yeah.
super funny?
Yeah.
Jim is hilarious. He has the best sense of humor. He's like the person that I know will make me laugh. And when he refers to me in email, only in email because he knows I'll laugh, he calls me Supreme Leader. And it always makes me laugh.
But it always reminds me of Coven, American Horror Story.
Oh, it reminds me of Star Wars.
Oh, weird. See how our brains are different?
Yeah.
Horror. Horror and
We said that at the
nerd.
same time. Nerd.
So Salk is Stevens and Andrea Becker and Heather Rivera, so good job there. Washington, Susan Osman and Gina Epp, and then Whitman,
Annika
Myatt, and Kenzie Tanner. And I do want to give a big shout out to that team because Kenzie Tanner doesn't have a special ed background, and she has been killing it.
Good job.
So kudos to those 9 schools. You have a nice little certificate
That's
coming
quite the
from
feat.
yours truly. I'll probably make deliveries before January is over. Maybe not. Could be the first week in February. But I will get to it today, I promise. So congratulations to those schools. That's a tremendous endeavor that you did the first semester.
That's incredible.
Now we have some shout outs.
Okay.
Samantha Hagnes, who with Becky Woolley put the AAC and AT guidance out. They are starting their version of the Wellness Challenge focusing on AAC next month.
Nice.
So this will be out in the newsletter, but she wanted me to give a little, the verbiage that she put out to you so you can hear it from my mouth. And it says, do you have students who use augmentative,
sorry. It's like elementary.
We're really good at this.
We can read.
And we're just going to sidestep that. And alternative communication in your classroom. Join us for a new type of wellness challenge that earns you points for talking in pictures. This is a great way to get teams actively, which is spelled AAC,
Cute.
TIVELY, which is really cute, supporting AAC use. Create a team of 3 or more members to join, and you will be given daily challenges like modeling core words and giving compliments that you can earn points. And the competition will run from February 6th to March 10th. And this will be going out on the next newsletter. So if you're curious and you want to know what that means, feel free to look at that newsletter, or you can reach out to Samantha Hagnes. I'm sure she'd be able to answer some of your questions.
I have some shout outs.
Yes.
Okay, let's see if I remember them all. I want to give a shout out to Jen Lugo at Adams, who's been holding down the fort because they've got a lot going on, and I've stepped in to cover some meetings, and she's so organized and so approachable, and I love that, even when things are difficult, she's just always such a team player. So. And
I know she has kids before, but she has like a newborn.
Yeah,
so she is,
like last year.
I think it was in the like June or July or something. So
she's a rock star.
Yeah.
Love
she's
Jen.
super woman.
Yes. I also want to give a shout out to my bestie, Liz Ariano. She and the other SLP, Christy Dunham at Lincoln, gave a presentation to Student University, which is like when parents are learning English. And so they come and take classes at Lincoln, and then they can sit in with their kids. And she had a parent approach her about some concerns for her high schooler. And so Liz did her due diligence to route her to the right person so that mom could get her questions answered. So I love Liz, but also she's just a person of integrity, and I love that she takes such pride in her work. And then I want to give a shout out to Cassie Elias, because it's not easy to come into a job midway through the year, and I think she's done it with such grace. And it's quite the learning curve to go.
She's been learning a lot.
Yeah, and I can attest to that, right? Like going from a school psych into like a district position, it's worlds different. There's so much overlap, but it's different. And so I think she's been doing an incredible job, and I love working with her, and I'm so glad we get to partner together.
And Carly, her department specialist,
yes,
has
Carly's
been
awesome too.
Good help for her too. We've been really collaborating, I think, the 4 of us, just on like procedures and items happening in the district that it's hard to kind of navigate through, especially as someone jumping into a new position.
And Carly was new to us too, and she was new to Mesa, so I think they're both doing a great job.
Yeah. Kudos, team.
Yeah, shout outs to you.
Appreciate you all. Do you want to get into those questions?
Sure.
Okay. I think they're pretty easy. I think we
Yeah,
got this.
I think we're good.
So the first question we had, and it was a head scratcher because I was a little confused. Like I thought it was a trick question, but it wasn't. It was, what's an IEP called without goals? And I thought it was going to be some sort of joke because it just
Not an IEP?
Not an IEP. But an IEP without goals is a 504 plan. And a 504 plan is basically an accommodation plan. It's just you have accommodations in place that the student can access the general education curriculum.
Which, can we talk a little bit more about that?
Yes.
Sorry, I keep touching my mic. I feel like, there's a lot of fear surrounding from parents maybe, and sometimes educators about exiting students. But that is the goal, theoretically, is to help a student progress so that we can exit them from special education. Because research shows we want them to be in gen ed. That's where the most robust learning occurs. There are students who will be in special education for their entire educational career, and that's okay. But if we don't have a need for services, if that student is able to progress with just accommodations, we owe it to that student to let them have that opportunity. So I know it can be nerve-wracking. I know and understand why parents would be fearful that their child might not do well without an IEP. But I do think if there's no goals, if we're saying, oh, they just need these accommodations, then you need to discuss alternative options, which might be a 504.
Yep. And then if by chance, and this is something that you could relay to the team in the message, if there's something further down the line and the student's struggling academically or behaviorally or something happened in their life that maybe is life altering, we could always put them back into a special ed process if the data is present. So then this spirals to the next question: what's the difference between a 504 and an IEP? And I'm just going to lean on Danya just a little bit because she specifically likes to talk about those three prongs, and I think the three prongs are really important to hear. So Danya, what's the difference between a 504 and an IEP?
Well, the primary difference is that a 504 doesn't include specialized instruction. So an IEP includes that SDI piece, and we do have to say yes to the three prongs of eligibility, which are, does the student have a disability? Does the disability have an adverse effect on their educational performance? And do they require specialized instruction? So is it not correctable without specialized instruction? So you might even say yes to the first two prongs. Like, let's say a student has autism and their autism does impact their educational performance, but they don't require specialized instruction. If you don't have a yes to all three, that student doesn't qualify. So for those tricky cases, I encourage psychologists and SLPs, whomever is the case manager of the MET, to make sure to go through the prongs, because I think it does guide that conversation really well. But if they only need accommodations to be successful, that's not an IEP. And we really want to be careful about how we're qualifying students, because we overqualify in Mesa. But really, if you have, and we've used this example before, 15 minutes a month of check-in, that's not specially designed instruction. There's nothing specialized about that. That's an accommodation. And that can be housed in a 504. And some kids might not even need a 504. The argument is always that a lot of the things that they require are best practice. I agree. That doesn't mean that everyone always does them. And so it's really up to your team to decide, do we really absolutely need these accommodations to be done in order for the student to progress? If so, maybe refer for a 504 eval, which is different than a MET, a SPED eval. But if not, if really it's just bare minimum accommodations, maybe we give the student an opportunity to try being successful in gen ed without any support.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That was pretty clear.
Good.
I like it.
Thanks. I didn't practice that, actually.
It was very eloquent.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Next question was, how should transportation be listed in the IEP? And I had to get some clarification as to what that meant. And if the student qualifies for specialized transportation, one, you should probably mention something in the PLAF. Put it somewhere that the student does qualify for that and explain the reason why they're qualifying for the specialized transportation. Two, when you list it in the related services section under the services tab, you put transportation, and that's going to be the transportation provider. And then you're going to have the frequency be per day. And we're doing the per day because Medicaid is tracking that, because we're currently in this open care plan that the state is pushing forward with, which we can get reimbursement from bus monitors or bus aides to document their time so that we can possibly get reimbursed for those minutes. So it would just put more funding back into Mesa Public Schools. So we're switching the guidance just a little bit because it didn't really matter before if it was like per week, per month, or per year, or if it was quarterly. We're going to switch it to per day just for the mere fact that our Medicaid specialists, there's 3, have to track that, and then they have to do the math if it's per day. I mean, I know we don't put in minutes, but now we're able to bill for those, so we're just going to put
That's
per
great.
day. Yeah, yeah, more funding for us. This has come up a lot, and I feel like I've touched on it every year. I think this is my 3rd year doing the podcast. Yeah, 3rd year. And it's this myth of 3, meaning what's reasonable to reach out to a parent to schedule meetings. I'm going to ask Danya a question. Danya, do you think it's reasonable to provide a parent with 1 meeting notice, but you call 3 times in that day?
No.
No, it's not. Now, it could be reasonable if I'm the special education teacher, she's the teacher, but she has a child in my classroom. It might be reasonable for me to walk down to Danya's classroom and hand her the notice, physically give it to her and say, hey, we're having an IEP meeting on this day. If you can make it, awesome. If not, let me know, and then we can reschedule. That might be reasonable for Danya. If you have a parent that you struggle to get a hold of a lot, it might be more reasonable or appropriate to have upwards of 6, 7, 8 types of conversation or contacts with different modalities or platforms, meaning phone call, possibly text, using other platforms like Dojo, email, however you communicate with parents.
Snail mail.
Snail mail, if you have to send it home to in the student's backpack, if you have to do a certified letter to send home. Those are all different modalities. It can't just be the one day. It has to be scheduled over multiple days that you've tried to make an effort to contact the parent to participate in a meeting.
So your example was like, it had come up that somebody called like there was a morning meeting, the parent didn't show up. So they set a meeting for like the lunch hour and the parent didn't show up, and then they set a meeting for after school. That's not fair.
A parent could be working all day. Yeah.
If the parent didn't get that communication, did you really make your best effort to involve them? Because I would say that legally, that would not hold up in a court that you attempted to involve them.
Because we'd have to really explain what reasonable is. Now, reasonable is not defined by law. So what's reasonable? So you could have someone that's working in your building, and the one time could be reasonable because you're interacting with that parent then and there. If you're struggling to make contact with parents or guardians or whomever to schedule these meetings, you need to really like prolong it and contact multiple days, not just the one at like various times throughout the day.
Right.
So if you have questions on that, please let me know. The myth of 3 thing that never existed, so I don't know where that came from, and I feel like we've talked about that quite a few times.
Yeah, that's been a myth forever though, because that was a myth in Utah. I also just want to say, so for reevaluations, you can hold meetings without parents if you've made every attempt possible and have scheduled multiple meetings that they've no-showed to. Parents can give you consent to hold meetings without them, in which point you would just document it. But let's say you're on your 4th meeting that you've emailed, called, sent a certified letter, you've put it in the student's backpack, and now 4 times after you do that for every meeting with separate meeting notices, the parent no-shows, you can move forward with a meeting for a reevaluation. You cannot do that for an initial. So students who are found eligible, you can't start services or write an IEP or hold it without parent involvement because they have to sign Section L for placement. Correct. So initials, unfortunately, you're at the mercy of the parent until they're able to be involved.
And just to piggyback off that, there should be a meeting notice for each time that you try to schedule a meeting, and it should be documented in Synergy on the student contact log. There's a lot of cases right now where it's not, and we have no evidence that you even tried for both. Like every time you contact a parent or want to schedule a meeting notice can go out, and you can create as many meeting notices as you can in Synergy. There's not a limit. There's not a max amount.
And I think as a district person, like it's hard when I have a parent that's like, no one has called me. And I know that the team has. And so I'll look in the student contact log because I want to be able to speak to that, and it's blank. And so people who aren't documenting, it's really hard for us to make a case to support you if that documentation isn't there.
So get used to putting that in the student contact log.
Yeah.
Please. And then the last one, which we kind of just found out yesterday, so I wanted to put this out there so everyone kind of knows. And this is just a specific case that we had, and it had to do with a student that transferred in and they were in the middle of the evaluation in another school district and then came to us.
Right.
So the question was, do we have to abide by the original parent consent date to get
That 60-day
further,
timeline.
to get the further testing? And the answer is no, for re-evaluations only.
And to give more context, so they
Yes.
transferred in and they were already past the 60-day timeline when they transferred in. So the conversation I was having was, do we grant a 30-day extension? Are we just out of compliance and we'll finish it as soon as we can? So you talked to Casey King, who's our district legal advisor, counsel. Shout out to Casey, we love her.
We love Casey.
And we love Casey. And she said that no, we don't abide by it. And
There
I
is-
reached
yeah.
out to the lead psych in Florence because I was like, she's one of my friends. So I was like, what would you do? And she's like, you're not bound to that either. She told me the same thing.
Casey did say to expedite it a little bit if possible, but like we wouldn't have to abide by that 60-day timeline.
Right.
Now, if it's an initial,
Yeah.
that's where we're on the hook, where we have to try our best to get in there. Obviously, if it was the case that we had yesterday where it was just at the 60-day mark, obviously we're going to probably want to do a prior written notice and just explain to the parents the reason why it went out of compliance. Hopefully the parents lenient with that because
Right.
it's coming from a different district. And if you think about it, trying to get the records from the other district can take some time depending on where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Arizona law is within 5 days.
That doesn't always happen.
That doesn't always happen.
I think in due process, if you documented in a PWN that the student transferred in with like when they transferred in, when you received records, when you were informed, like what are they going to do? If a
Right.
student transfers in on, what day is today, the 24th, and it's due tomorrow, we're not conducting a comprehensive evaluation in 24 hours,
No
so
way.
it's reasonable to be out of compliance at that point.
So if you have like tricky situations like that, just contact me or Danya, and we'll help you navigate through those questions.
Yeah, if we don't know the answer ourselves, we'll figure it out.
We'll find it.
We will find it.
will
And then
find it
we
for
learn
you.
something.
So I learned that
Win-win.
yesterday. So I learned something. I've been
Me
learning
too.
a lot this year.
Me too.
I don't know if it's just because I'm now helping you with psych stuff. So I'm
Well,
like,
I think this year's like the year of like one-offs, like situations that you've never had before. And psychs ask me questions, and I'm like, I don't know. I've never had that happen. This is my 11th year in the profession, and that's a new one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
okay, so we have
Okay.
a question that we're going to ask for next time we come back, and then whoever's in my inbox, we'll do the fourth person in my inbox with the correct answer will get this prize. And if you're listening to this podcast, you should already know the answer to this question because it has to do with electronic signatures. One.
Justin's trigger word.
It's my trigger word.
Just
It's a two-parter question. So the first part is, what date did we send out the news feed regarding electronic signatures? Because
Okay.
I want to know if you're actually reading what we're putting out.
I
Because
felt my eye
I
because
saw
I
it.
knew you were annoyed. Yeah.
I saw it. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. It was on your behalf.
And then the second part is, when can you utilize the electronic signature function? Which one
Dun,
is
dun,
in
dun.
the newsfeed, and
And
two,
two,
I said it earlier in
in
the
the
podcast.
podcast, yeah.
So this should be an easy question for someone to get this small little prize just for listening to the podcast.
Yeah. I hope I'm here next month for the next one. We'll see.
She better be. You better stay in there.
Stay in there.
That's all we have today for the podcast. But if you could please subscribe through Apple iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then before sounding off, remember, be kind, care for others, speak and act respectfully, remain calm, which I feel like we need to practice a little bit more. January has been a month, let me tell you. I feel
It's
like
been
it's
a
been
month.
like 5 months in the month of January.
When I was driving home yesterday, I just turned the radio off and I was like, I think I need some silent time.
Sometimes that's nice,
drove
just
home in silence.
silent time.
It makes me understand when my mom used to ask if I could stop asking her questions on the drive home because she needed a minute.
My mom used to make things up to shut me up, so that was fun.
yeah.
I have some stories there, but I don't know if we
Maybe
have enough
next
time.
month, yeah.
Maybe. And then lastly, just actively listen.
Yeah.
Actively listen to your colleagues, your staff members, your students, your parents, all that good stuff.
You got this, guys. I don't know if anyone has a timer going to spring break, but it's like 7 weeks maybe. Hang in there. We got it.
And we have a Monday off, February 20th.
Sure do.
We do.
Sure do.
I don't know who's counting, but we are.
Have a good day, everyone.
See you next month.